Before we dive in too deeply into the subject of entrepreneurship, I want to talk about what are we really trying to accomplish in this course and what is entrepreneurship really. Some people will criticize courses in entrepreneurship and say, well, if everybody doesn't go out and start their own business, what's the point in teaching a course? My goal is not that you go out and start your own businesses, although that would be great if it happened, but rather that you all develop an entrepreneurial mindset. Harder to say than it looks, I guess. What is that? What do I mean by that? Well, simply, these are people who create something out of nothing. I'll talk about the definition of entrepreneurship a little bit later, but we tend to think of that create something as a new business. Doesn't have to be. Could be a new nonprofit, could be a new product line within an established company, could be a new operating location within an established company, could be a new manufacturing technique within an established company. So to me, an entrepreneurial mindset is people who have the skills to see what needs to be done and then can create whatever it is that needs to be created to get that thing done. Whether it's a new business, a new nonprofit, or within an established organization, doesn't matter. To me, that's all, part of having an entrepreneurial mindset. What is entrepreneurship? Well, let me get at that with a little bit of an indirect question. So my first question is, or a statement. In your mind, are entrepreneurship and small business ownership the same thing? Do you agree or disagree with that statement? Now, let me tell you right up front that this can become a very emotional subject for people as to who's an entrepreneur and who's not. I choose not to participate in that discussion whatsoever. If someone operates an eBay resale store part-time that does $200 a year in revenue, and they want to call themselves an entrepreneur, I don't care. But I do want to try to tease out some elements, and I want you to crystallize in your mind what you mean, just so as we dive into the study, you can have clearly what your perspective is and maybe what the author's perspective is in the textbook. If we were doing this class face-to-face, I would spend a lot of time with you all giving me some of the answers to this question. And they're going to be all over the map. Some people are going to say, absolutely, every small business owner is not an entrepreneur. Some of you would say, no, I don't see it that way at all. Some things that come up are risk. How much risk is there in the deal? Some people would say because they're all taking risks, they're all entrepreneurs. Some people cue in on, is it a new idea? Did they start the business? How novel is it? So for example, to some people, franchise owners are not entrepreneurs because they're using somebody else's idea. Other people feel very strongly the other way. I don't get into it, but there do tend to be some differences that I'm going to develop for you in the next slide. And this idea of how innovative is the business and how fast is the business growing. And I'll get you to the end point, and that is businesses that are either growing in size or becoming more innovative are probably acting entrepreneurially. When you get down to that basic quadrant of low innovation, low growth, that is the economic core of America, the traditional small business. This is where you get your clothes cleaned, where you get your cars worked on, where you buy your furniture in a lot of cases, where you get your hair cut. In some cases, because some of those are increasingly franchised businesses now. But this is the economic core. And do not kid yourself into thinking that there's no money in these businesses. Absolutely not the case. Some of these businesses are incredibly profitable. Many are not. But you can't make a judgment on the profitability as to whether they're growing or whether they're innovative. But when you introduce the growth aspect, that would be somebody who takes a relatively non-innovative business but does it in a lot of places under a lot of conditions. And a great example of that is the gentleman that endowed the Entrepreneurship Center here at Midwestern, Munir Lalani. He opened 10 Whataburgers in the space of 4 years in Texoma. So he was the Mr. Whataburger in this area. When you drive around Wichita Falls and you see all those Whataburgers, Mr. Lalani built those. He harvested those, a topic we'll talk about at the very end of the course, in the late 1900s, or late 1990s to be more exact. Right at the top of the market, great time to exit your businesses. So you can see there's risk taking there. There's an eye for opportunity because he felt like no matter how many hamburger joints there were already operating, that there was room for a bunch of Whataburgers, and he was right. Up the other axis, you have the innovative notion. And that first box says inventor. A lot of times you never hear about these companies or these products. It's because somebody comes up with a cool way to do things, but it never takes off. It never gets market traction. Why not? Typically, there are two reasons. The first is that the product does not have value for the customer. In other words, it's neat to the inventor, but it's solving a problem that no one cares about. Or two, it really is solving a problem that people care about, but the person goes about the entrepreneurial process so badly that they completely falter in the rollout of the market, rollout of the product into the market. And then you get that nirvana land of high growth and high innovativeness. So this is where your Googles, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, those sorts of companies fit. But not always just them. You would also have, for example, one that was one of my favorite ones just for wow, can they really do that, is diapers.com, which eventually was bought by Amazon. But the diapers.com website still works out. Innovative, this idea of selling diapers on the internet, and fast growth, you bet. And so when you see companies that are innovating and growing, then we call that a measure of entrepreneurial intensity. A lot of companies they don't retain high entrepreneurial intensity 100% of the time. They have periods of innovation, they have periods of growth, and maybe periods of stability where neither one of those are occurring. It's just this basic idea. If you see growth, if you see innovation, then you're probably seeing entrepreneurship. And I would differ that somewhat from that bottom box of traditional small business, no growth, no innovation. We're just happy to be here. Thank you very much. If you had to sum it up in words, you would say, are these companies pursuing opportunities? Are these individuals pursuing opportunities? If they are, then they are acting entrepreneurially. So that gets back to the entrepreneurial mindset. Even if you're in a big company, if you're pursuing opportunities, even within the structure of that big company, then I would say that you're acting entrepreneurially. So here is the classic Harvard Business School definition of entrepreneurship. Notice it's got those magic words: pursuit of opportunity without regard to the resources controlled, which is to say you're going to leverage other people's money and other people's time. We'll talk about this when we talk about resources later on, in the next couple of videos. But then I want to make it even simpler. I say that entrepreneurship is the act of seeing opportunity and then seizing opportunity. For many of us, we see it, but we don't seize it. It's both things. Without the seizing, it's not entrepreneurship. In fact, you're going to find that what separates people is not nearly as much the seeing of the opportunity, it's the seizing of the opportunity that really differentiates entrepreneurs from non-entrepreneurs. Here's another way, not that it's different or it's just another way to think about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the process of moving from unknowns to knowns. And you notice I say that the risk premium out there in the unknown land is pretty high. And diapers.com is a good example of that. When they launched the service called diapers.com, they had to figure out, will people buy diapers on the internet? And so they put up a website with very little infrastructure and found out that yes, people would. Then the question becomes, how much of a price premium will people pay to buy for the convenience of buying diapers over the internet? Answer, very little. So then they had to go in and solve the logistical challenges. Can we optimize our logistical footprint in operations such that we can deliver diapers to the doorstep with roughly the same price as what they pay when they go into the stores? They had to drive that risk out. And once they'd done all that, that's when they became a very valuable company, specifically worth $500 million when Amazon bought them several years ago. So entrepreneurship is the process of turning unknowns into knowns and doing it profitably. I'm going to stop now because I want in the next video to give you a series of great paradoxes. They're going to get your mind really gelling, so to speak, on this idea of entrepreneurship. Join me then.